We hear a lot about bisexual people not feeling queer enough. But have you ever felt not straight enough to be bi? Bisexual people in same-gender relationships or queer-presenting people who are bi are often mistaken to be gay. On this episode, we unpack what it means to navigate the world as a bi person in same-gender relationships, the privileges and challenges of being gay passing, and how these dynamics shape visibility, community, and identity. We'll also explore how to embrace your bisexuality fully, foster meaningful connections, and find pride in your unique place in the queer spectrum.
Give It To Me Bi acknowledge that we live, work, and play on Gadigal land. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to elders past and present. Sovereignty was never ceded. This is Give It To Me Bi, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything from a bi plus perspective. I'm Chad Barnier.
And I'm Steve Spencer. Together, we're diving into the real stories, the challenges, and the celebrations of the bi plus community. We are here to learn together and, of course, to laugh together.
From personal journeys to cultural moments, we are here to amplify a bi plus point of view and spark conversations that matter.
So, whether you're bi, pan, queer, or just curious, join us as we explore the world of bi plus experiences.
Now, let us give it to you bi. Hi.
Hey, Chad.
Welcome back.
I know, we had a little break.
We did. Had a little break. Had a Kit Kat.
Or had a Kit Kat. Half a Kit Kat for me.
Yes.
I'd like to say I was off in some exotic destination like Hawaii or Fiji, but no. I just got to chill out and work through my to-do list. This time of year, Chad, as everyone listening knows, is an intense period.
It's hectic. It's hectic. And we were both burning the candle at both ends. And for you, I think you had like a 5-way candle with wicks pointing in every direction. You had like 19 different AGMs in 1 week. I don't know how you did it, but we are here. We are back.
Totally. Back, we're reinvigorated, feeling very bisexual as always.
Feeling so bi. December is upon us.
December.
You had a birthday.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah, happy birthday. I had planned on doing like a birthday episode for you, and it was like you were saying, we were very hectic, and I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do it. I know. I thought about
notes on it. I'm like, what is he doing? Do I just like go through like the life and times of Steve? Like, it's not that exciting. There are a lot of cows. I'm from a farm, by the way, everyone. There are a lot of cows in the story.
Well, I just know that how many people in our community just love and adore you, and I wanted to kind of collate a bunch of like video messages or something like they do on This Is Your Life, wishing you happy birthday. But I thought about it like the day beforehand. I was like, well, that's not enough time, and so I was like, damn it, we're just gonna not acknowledge your birthday on the podcast.
No, but I felt all the love. It was really, really nice, and just also really cool to reflect on the year that's been, and just how much has happened since I turned 32 last year, as I am now 33. Oh, do you want to know a really embarrassing thing?
Please, yeah.
For like 6 months over the last year, for a long period, I was telling people that I was 33 already. I forgot my own age. I forgot my own age.
I'm the same. I've been forgetting my age.
Yeah, it was very odd. And like, my mum has got memory problems, and she was talking to me about that. I'm like, Mum, it's all good. I don't even know how old I am, so I am with you on this journey. Do not stress. So we bonded over that.
Did you have a good birthday?
I did absolutely nothing on the actual day, which was fantastic.
Great.
And then went to a rave on the Saturday afterwards.
Great. Awesome. How long did it take to recover?
Oh, not long at all. I was in bed by 10.
Oh, that's a good rave. Nice. That's great.
Signs that you've turned 33, you're in bed by 10 on the day of the rave. No, zero recovery. Very, very lucky.
Hey, how's your competition prep going?
So, as our listeners may know, I am in training to become a competitive bodybuilder.
Me too.
Woo!
I have to throw that joke in every week. It's still funny to me.
Well, we are building a fitness plan for you, which is very exciting.
We are, yes.
And it's also exciting because, I get all the updates. And I remember when I turned 30 is when I set this goal. So I was 120 kilos, obese, not fit at all. And I've sort of made that decision, I guess, 3 years ago now to make the change. And then, lost 40 kilos through diet and exercise and would never have possibly dreamed that I'd be in this position ever, 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 ever. And discovered a sport that I love. And so it's ups and downs. It's an emotional, this whole sport is just a mental sport mostly.
Yeah, for sure.
You move things and you adjust diet, but it's about your head. Yeah, getting there. Like 2 weeks, 2 weeks left.
Yeah, 2 weeks. That's exciting. What's your Christmas look like when you're in training?
Well, that's at the end. So I'm in a cut. And so what that means, when you're a cut, you're in a calorie deficit, which means I'm dropping my weight down. And that's basically to show definition in your body, because the way that these competitions are judged are on aesthetics. So that's a 12-week period and I'm up to week 10. Yeah, the Christmas will be like 5 days before there. So I might just cut it early so I can just indulge in some turkey. And
Yes.
I do a mean roast potato and I cannot wait to make you my roast potatoes.
Oh,
they are
I'm here for it. Though I do have to warn you, my partner is known for not just being a good cook, like phenomenal cook, but like the potato lord.
We're having a cook-off.
Heidi's family are potato farmers. So
No, really?
there's like a history. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, she's fantastic. It's when I go to see my family for Christmas, which I'm doing again this year, they always ask, is Heidi bringing the potatoes?
Well, that's what people ask about me as well.
Ooh, okay. Well, you can potato off.
Yeah, no, we're potatoing off.
Love it.
Of course, you're whistling Chapel Roan in the background there.
Honestly, if you say Chapel Roan, that will be in my head for the rest of the day. And you said, when I said, are you ready to go to record? You said, I'm hot to go. And now you've predetermined the path for the rest of my day.
Oh no. Well, I am here to hold space for you in your
thank you.
admiration of Chapel Roan.
Thank you. Thank you for holding space.
Yes, on this episode we are holding space for the lyrics of Hot to Go.
We are. As someone in queer media, we are holding space.
As two people oh my God, we are in queer media.
We are technically in queer media.
We are. We really are.
Well, hey, I have a life update. Last week, after a very long time and a lot of frustration, I finally received a diagnosis of combined ADHD, which has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
And it was very validating. It was very emotional. I had a very, very long psych appointment with 2 psychs, actually. And I am now trialing some medication to see if it has an effect and see if it works and all that kind of stuff in my life. And so far, so good. This is wonderful news. I'm very excited to see what this means for me and my life and my career and all the different things, because it has impacted every area of my life. And we were saying before, like about diet and about structure and routine and about so many things. So it's an interesting journey and an emotional one. Hopefully it's good news.
Totally.
I'm like a week in, so it's still very raw and fresh. I don't really know how to talk about it or like break it down, but it's I think it's great news to have some kind of clarification.
Yeah. Well, it's raw and fresh now, but what's that journey been like getting up to that point of diagnosis?
Like I said, it's affected kind of every area of my life. For as long as I can remember, I was the naughty kid in school, the kid that didn't pay attention, the kid that like struggled with studies, all that kind of stuff, but not for lack of like being smart or intelligent. I had a lot of those skills, but I just couldn't apply myself. And I've just noticed I've had a trend in my life. And actually, we've got a mutual friend that called me out on it when I was working at working with the Sydney Bi Plus Network. I was talking about a project that I hadn't completed or hadn't launched and I had delayed. And I was like, well, that's kind of what you do though. And I, in that moment, was like, oh my gosh. I was like, okay. Like I knew it affected me.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't realize how how obvious it was to other people. And this was quite a new friend. I still consider him a really good friend. I didn't realize how much it was obvious and how much it affected other people and the projects we worked on together. And looking back, I'm like, well, of course it is. It's affected everything I've ever worked on with other people.
Yeah.
And that kind of prompted me years ago to be like, oh, I got to look into this.
Yeah.
And
years
here
ago.
we
So
are.
it's been like that long.
Oh, yeah.
God.
Yeah, it's been years. And then the kind of internet, everyone kind of getting diagnosis and talking about it, like
Right.
almost put me off. I didn't want to see it as an excuse, or I didn't want to like blame something else, or I wanted to be like, no, I can just will myself into this, and I can just discipline myself into this. But it's literally a brain condition, like it's a brain disorder. You can't discipline yourself into it, and I felt a lot of shame and guilt around letting people down over many years, and hopefully this is the start of not letting people down as frequently as I previously have. So
yeah.
Well,
from that shame that you just mentioned, I think you should just be so bloody proud of yourself. I'm so bloody proud of you. So
thank you so
proud
much.
of you, and excited for you as well, because who knows what's going to happen.
Exactly. Chad for PM.
Do it. Oh my God.
We are here today to talk about same-sex relationships, and specifically bisexuality and how it interacts with and manifests in same-sex relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a large part of our community, and it's kind of the one that isn't talked about a lot. We see like a lot of people talking about the challenges of I'm bisexual and I'm in a straight passing, again, bunny ears, or a different gender relationship, because that is the majority of our community, just purely based on numbers of gender and attraction. That is just bound to happen. Yeah. But often a lot of folks are missing out on content and support and resources because they are bisexual and may either be in or have a preference to or just exist in a same-sex prioritized lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a good topic.
Yeah. Especially like for bi people who exist and look, and also everyone, we apologize for any like clumsy language we use, as always. I think we all know that we're approaching this with heart and soul. For bi people who exist within the queer community, like they say they live in a queer dominated neighborhood, or they socialize mainly in queer spaces, we often feel the erasure as a bi person really strongly in those places. And then add on to that, if you're in a same gender relationship, that sort of extra layers of invisibility, extra layers of erasure will be, referred to as being in a gay relationship. We will often be referred to as gay if we are in the same gender relationship.
Or a gay couple, right?
Or a gay couple, yeah.
We talked last week about the idea of couples and relationships having an identity, right? Mm-hmm. And that isn't the case. You're not in a gay relationship. You're in a same gender or similar gender relationship. And the opposite is true. You're not in a straight relationship. You're also not in a bisexual relationship. You are in a same or similar or a different. But yeah, you're not in a gay couple either.
No. And it's funny, in the relationships I've been in with other men, I've never seen it as a gay relationship. That just doesn't compute. But also the way that I experience my bisexuality is that the gender of my partner only really comes into play when other people impose their views onto me.
Yeah.
And it's just
funny. The gay couple comment is one I would usually hear from, like, perhaps someone who has previously dated someone of a different gender, and then perhaps they've broken up, and then they've gone off and maybe they're dating someone of similar gender. And the commentary on that is like, oh, have you heard? Steve's in a gay relationship now.
The worst thing, and you hear this a lot, especially in the media, when if a bi person ends up in a same gender relationship, there's often a narrative of like, they finally made up their mind. Because especially for bi men, because we are assumed to be on the way to gay town. Thanks very much, Carrie Bradshaw, who got a shout out in our recent Star Observer post. That sort of narrative is really, really harmful. On this topic, Chad, as well, I have a little life update.
Oh, what's your update?
Which is very exciting. And I'm happy to share this with the listeners, is that I have fallen madly in love with an individual who I've been dating for a few months. And so I'm
Aw.
all loved up and it's very exciting. So shout out to that beautiful man. And so,
Yeah.
and it's and it's interesting that this topic comes up as well because, the last few years I've really only dated women. But, again, it's only when we scrutinize like the genders of our partners that we actually go, oh, like I'm dated women, dated men, but in my mind I'm just dating people, right? So I'm in a wonderful relationship now. Sorry everyone for it's bad news for some people. we got a question from a listener a little while ago about what sort of insights I in particular have about moving between those spaces, for want of better terms. At the top of this episode we talk about how the notion of not being queer enough is so often heard. But then what about the notion of not being straight enough? And so,
yeah, Steve, you really woke me up to this. It's something that, like, as someone from my lived experience, the not feeling queer enough is so like integral. Like, I want people to clock me, right? And I just hadn't considered that you would not feel straight enough. And you really woke me up to this.
Yeah, exactly. And at the very end of the day, you are perfectly bi just the way you are.
Exactly.
You're not. There's nothing not enough about you.
Yeah.
You, my dear bi baby, listening to this, are perfect just the way you are.
And also, like, not straight enough is also funny language because we have not queer enough as language to say not part of our community. Whereas, like, not straight enough, you're not trying to be straight. You're not trying to be like a different sexual identity, but there is a straight quality, this mask quality, this like heteronormative quality that could be perceived to be beneficial when you are dating, say, folks of a different gender to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's basically like letting the world know I'm on the market, I'm available, I am, all of these things. Please don't assume my sexuality. And so much of this comes down to assumptions. Also, by bringing in a narrative about being not straight enough, this really opens up the bi plus community to having discussions and also creating space for, say, queer presenting bi plus people holding space.
Holding space.
And like it's something that I see a lot because I'm one of those people that exists within the queer community. I live in an area with a lot of queer people. I socialize in queer spaces. Is the struggles, especially for other bi men who exist in that sort of community, in that sort of space, the struggle they have in being seen as bi because there is just no visibility and it makes it very, very difficult. And something I hear so often, especially from older queer men, is, and I hear this all the time, is if I had my time over, like I would be more like you, but I felt forced into a gay life where I'm really, truly bisexual. Because they felt not straight enough. And they were never told when they were younger that they are perfect, that they are just the way they are, and also that you can date and see and be whatever you want. It's also about giving people that permission because sometimes we need that validation.
It's so true. The permission is like I'm learning more and more like that we do this work that like sometimes people are just looking for someone to say, I see you, I hear you, like you are valid. This feeling isn't odd. This feeling isn't wrong. And I noticed particularly with our last episode on like the different gender relationships that really kind of unlocked for a few people. We actually received some pretty heartfelt messages after that episode that really, I kind of been crying for 2 weeks, to be honest. It's been really wonderful to see they were given that permission or almost that kind of nudge to kind of say, I'm okay. There's nothing broken. I can find that calm in myself and my identity to kind of then move forward into the next challenge of like navigating relationships or navigating a conversation, whatever it might be. But like fundamentally, the baseline is I'm good. Yeah. I'm okay. So thank you also, everyone, for writing in. Tears be flowing.
Speaking of community questions from our listeners, we got one for this episode. And the question was, do you feel supported by the bi community regardless of gender relationship? On the point
Good
that you
one.
were just making, the only time I felt fully accepted and I felt queer enough and straight enough to be a bi person is in the bi community. I remember going to my first ever bi event. It was a Sydney Bi Plus Network event, and I was so petrified. And at the time, I had a male partner, and I'm just like, I'm not straight. I'm not bi enough. Like am I really going to be accepted? Especially in the gay community, there's this perception that bi men have to be mask and down low and gruff and all these weird stereotypes which do not reflect the broad spectrum of masculinity at all. But it does get ingrained in you, and it takes work to pull that apart and actually interrogate what masculinity looks like and what it means to actually enter a bi space and to just feel that, I'm perfect. And look at all these other people who share experiences, who have different experiences, but we share this really intrinsic thing. The bi community is just nothing but love and acceptance. It's really the place to feel enough.
It's pretty wonderful. The bi community, because it is so broad, is also so broadly accepting, I find. When I found, again, the Sydney Bi Plus Network, which actually, there's a bit of a life update. Did I say in the last episode that I'm on the leadership team now?
I don't think you did. So tell everyone. Oh my gosh,
okay. Very quickly aside, I nominated myself for the Sydney Bi Plus Network leadership team, which I had been on previously, and we had the AGM recently, and I was accepted into the leadership team. So I'm very excited to do some work with them.
Congratulations!
It feels like a coming home of sorts, because back to the point is when I discovered the Sydney Bi Plus Network, and when I was like, okay, I really need to step out in my bisexuality and be visible. I found them, and I found events by them and attended, and it was the first time I kind of entered this room and my shoulders just relaxed and like my neck was not tense, where I was like, oh, everyone here gets it. Even if no one talked about it, like only half of the time was a topic of conversation. It was like, oh, I don't have to like mask. There's this kind of like, oh, my body feels loose. It was great. And I have a female partner. And I was like, oh, I'm not queer enough. And so, it's pretty cool to have bi communities supporting bi people no matter what. And of course they would. We had a comment or a question that is from last episode, but still relevant to this one, from Kim.
They all are, though.
Yeah, exactly. They're all similar kind of threads. It's interesting when people perceive you as queer, right? And maybe they don't perceive you as gay or bi or straight, but they perceive you as queer and then discover the gender of your partner, and you can kind of see like their knee-jerk reaction to, oh, you're queer, but you're dating someone of a different gender.
And this is non-bi people having that reaction, right?
Exactly. And we had actually a great comment this morning when we asked community for some questions, is because same-sex relationships are often seen as queerer, or it's a hard word to say, more queer than different gender relationships. How do we navigate being visible or being bisexual and the, I guess, the perceived queerness of us and our relationships inside of a same-sex or a different sex relationship?
I really face it up front, and I know we're between discussing different gender relationships and same gender relationships, they're effectively the same topic because they're all the same anxieties. And like for the listeners, everything you feel is the same thing someone with a different experience who's bi also feels. It's so incredible. Like you said it before, like just the threads that go through, it's all the same. And these are anxieties that are imposed on us because it's not how we experience it, because we have to explain ourselves constantly to other people. Where was I going with that? I don't know. That's a pretty good point.
I might keep that in. I'd love to talk about something that's not, it may be almost a little bit an aside of this topic, is same-sex platonic relationships as a bisexual person. So growing up, for me, I always felt like one of the girls, right? Like I had kind of more best friends that were girls than guys, and felt more kind of emotionally in tune with girls and women, and I just always felt a bit at odds with boys.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like there's a part of that kind of toxic masculinity where I felt like I was threatened by boys and that kind of macho-ness. But I feel like when I was prepping for this episode, I almost feel like there was perhaps a fear of getting too close and having that perceived to be romantic and having it perceived to be too intimate, perhaps as not just a friendship, as, oh, that's a gay friendship or that's something else, and being scared of being outed. Also, like, where the line was, like, as a teenager, it's like, oh, I'm really good friends and close and intimate with this person. If they're my best friend, do I actually want to date them? And I've always found that like quite challenging. And I think that is potentially something that's kind of grown into my adulthood, being cautious about being too close with men and not making my partner feel uncomfortable, right? Because like most different gender relationships, that wouldn't be a concern. Oh, you're close with your boys or your mates, and I've never been one of the boys. My partner might be like, oh, what if, oh, that's a bit close, or oh, I wonder, are they just friends? Like that it just is built into this kind of internalized biphobia that happens on both sides of the fence now.
There's that funny meme. So like there's like that toxic idea of you can't be friends with the gender you're attracted to.
Yeah, and I hated that growing up.
Yeah, and then like the second slide on that meme is by people just shrugging, being like, "Oh, okay, I can't have any friends then." And
well, honestly,
really
I felt a bit of that. I remember growing up, my brother would say, "Oh, you can't be friends with girls because you will date girls, and that's weird." And I was like, "Okay, well, I want to date anyone. Does that mean I can't have friends?"
Yeah,
and I always felt very kind of push-pull about that.
And then in the context of a relationship, it gets really toxic, right? Like if you're demanding of your partner that you can't be friends with the gender that they are attracted to. It's like if you're, say, if you're a man seeing a woman, you're not allowed to be friends with other women. But if you're bi, you're not allowed to have any friends. And that's where the suspicion and where this toxicity really comes in. And it's sort of other people, non-bi people, need to overcome that suspicion, need to overcome that biphobia. It is biphobia. It's a core part of biphobia, really.
Yeah, I haven't really pieced that together before, but you're so right. It's like almost entry to biphobia a little bit of like, maybe this is where some of those seeds are planted so early of you can't be friends with people that you're attracted to. And if you're attracted to everyone, you can't be friends with anyone. Therefore, you can't have relationships. And if we are, I can see that as being this kind of nucleus of that threat that people might feel as the partner.
It is, because you were how old were you when you were told of that? You would have been a kid, right?
Yeah, super young.
It starts really young, and then it's ingrained into people.
Steve, I am interested in this idea we've talked about and touched on in a few different episodes, is privilege and how privilege can manifest in different communities, different relationships. And in particular, this episode, is there such thing as gay passing privilege?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So we really broke down the notion of bunny ears, everyone, straight passing privilege, right? And how we see in our outcomes that there are massive inequities, massive disadvantages, that privilege is really nullified by the actual lived experiences of bi people. But, you know, I have the unique experience of having navigated different all these different types of gender mixed relationships, and having been within the LGBTIQ plus community quite deeply, and witnessing myself as having 1 foot, for using clumsy language, but sort of 1 foot in the community and 1 foot out of it, to be able to look in and say, wow, within the LGBTIQ plus community, because gay people are sort of the dominant force politically, socially, all these different ways within that community, there's a huge deal of gay privilege. And I often talk about how I'm treated very differently walking into a gay bar with a man than when I walk into a gay bar with a woman. But then it extends further. It's a structural thing, right? So all of these services that we are very blessed here in Australia, we have fairly well-funded LGBTIQ plus resources. That funding can be taken away at any point, of course, and the way that we're going politically, who knows what will happen. But, you know, the fact that you can ring up a hotline and get a smorgasbord of gay counselors, but bi people cannot call up a helpline and find really any bi counselors if you're experiencing mental health distress, just goes to show that we haven't really reached a point of expanding the privileges afforded to gay people to bi people. And when you're in a relationship with someone of the same gender as yourself, you get to experience those privileges. You get to experience what it's like to walk into these safe spaces and not be looked at weird. And it's so funny because you're treated as part of the group until the moment that you actually speak openly and honestly and reveal bunny ears who you are. And then if you actually tell people who you really are, that you're a bi person, that's when you're treated a bit like an outsider. And so, I think this might lead well into a conversation about visibility within same gender relationships, because I really think the key here is actually showing that there are, it's the lighthouse metaphor that we always use. In a gay bar, in these queer spaces, and I am using the language gay bar quite deliberately, even though we try and reclaim it into LGBTQ+. Let's be honest here. When we look at these spaces, if we put a loudspeaker out and said, bisexuals, put your hand up, you would realize that we are everywhere, as we are anywhere. The visibility is just so important. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. I'm reminded of like different queer events that I've gone to, and the conversations I'm having there. No one knows your sexuality looking at you. It's impossible to know. And having conversations with people, and I just know that people are assuming that I'm gay, which I'm not offended by that. Like there's nothing wrong with being gay, so I'm not offended by being assumed that way. However, I am uncomfortable being assumed to be something I'm not, because it is important to me. So I know that at any moment, if I choose to come out again and declare that I'm bisexual, there is going to be a moment. There's going to be perhaps a judgment, and it's happened plenty of times. So like, oh yeah, so I'm bisexual, or I'm on the leadership team of the Bisexual Network. There's this kind of like, oh, okay. And then you almost see maybe a little bit of hope. Oh, but is he one of us? As in, like, is he dating a man?
If he has a boyfriend, then we'll just pop him in this category.
Exactly. And then I go, oh yeah, and my partner and my child, and then they're doing the mental math, because I use partner a lot, and I don't say my girlfriend or anything. I say my partner, and like, oh, okay, oh, male partner with a child, oh, slay, or female partner with a child, oh, okay, and it's uncomfortable, because then I'm doing the mental gymnastics of like, do I come out? Do I also then ID my partner? And then if I don't, am I doing an injustice to my partner? It's bizarre. There's almost this value system of queerness that can happen in those spaces. So visibility, no matter who you're dating, is important, if it is important to you. Some people don't give a fuck. It's like, I'm a person dating a person. For me, because this is the work that I do and stuff, like, it is important to me. I totally feel you.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be important to everyone, right? Like the example I gave earlier of the older people that I've spoken to said if they had the time over, they'd live their life more freely as a bi person. But there came a point in their life where they just went, you know what, I'm happy with the lot that life has given me. Is that the turn of phrase?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah, good. And that's totally fine. But the notion of visibility is that it doesn't just improve your life, it improves others. And I found that when I'm in a same gender relationship, it's really, really important for me to be honest, to be forcefully visible, and for my partner to join me in that. And I've always been so blessed to, as you have as well, to have partners that, there's nothing more exciting than if like someone at a party or somewhere says like, oh, that gay couple. And then, if my partner goes over and says, well, we're not a gay couple, Steve's bi, it's a same gender relationship for sure, same gender couple, but we're not a gay couple, neither one of us is gay. And I tell you what, there's no better feeling than when you see this
tingles.
active allyship. It's
Tingles,
the
great.
best.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that is so possible for everyone's partner to be that, but it is going to be almost guaranteed that is your partner if you are going out into the dating world and you are declaring your bisexuality and you're declaring what's important to you. If you are hiding that part of yourself, then it's hard for other people to champion that part of you because they don't know it. We were talking before about that kind of like, oh, perhaps I have dated people of different genders for majority of my life or whatever it might be, and I'm going out to date the same sex or same gender for the first time. Oh my gosh, what a moment. And there's a lot of trepidation to this idea, right?
Totally.
Like I can't speak from my experience, but I have so many friends who are like, oh my gosh, what the fuck do I do? This is a new world. It's nothing like
common.
What I'm used to.
I see it online all the time. People are, I'm going, like in a bi men group, I'm going in all the time. I'm going on a date with the dude for the first time. What do I do?
What do I do? It's funny. Actually, one of my best friends, it's funny. One of my best friends, when I first met them, we met at like a musical theater sing-along night. I was like, yo, we should get a drink. And we were just hanging out. And then like 2 hours into that chat, he's like, wait, are we not on a date? I'm like, no. I thought we were just making friends. It's like, oh, I thought we were on a date. You were lovely. Like, oh, okay, sorry.
Oh no.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, the idea of like, where do I find people? How do I find people? Is there certain lingo, certain signifiers or markers or identification? What do I need? What's a bear? What's an otter? What's a femme butch dyke? Like what am I doing?
It is. It's because it is a subculture, and there is language, and you know what? It takes time to learn, for sure. But it's there to learn. It's there to learn, and have people guide you. And the fact that I see so many people asking this online and people responding is just such a great conversation to see people actually having out loud, because it also opens up conversations about HIV prevention, which really excites me to see. And people then talk about PrEP. People talk about safe use of apps. People talk about safety because, especially being online, if you're using apps, make sure you're not getting scammed, make sure you're not getting catfished, all these different tools that are learned, but there are people that have learned it before you, and so you can learn from them.
It's interesting because like this dating experience for people may be in some quote unquote queer-centric community, but sometimes it might not be. So language and lingo and all that kind of stuff is so contextual. So like if you are in a queer hub, maybe things like bear, otter, or femme dyke, or whatever it might be, is like
top, bottom, side.
Exactly. All that kind of stuff might be the language of the people you're connecting with, so you kind of adapt. Oh, people are seeking this, and so I am probably seeking something, or maybe I need to know what my boundaries or limits or identification is. But also, connection is connection. You just might meet someone at a pottery class, and it doesn't fucking matter. You know what I mean? Because I see them, they see me, we like each other, we kiss, and wow. So like all that stuff, if that is daunting, fair. That could absolutely be daunting. Just talking about it can be daunting, but it's not integral to queer dating or anything like that.
It can be so much simpler than it seems. And we got a question here from our community, and it's, what excites you the most about same-sex relationships? And to be honest, the answer is this exact same thing that excites me about any relationship. It's the fact that you get to form a connection, you get to learn about a person, you get to have this wonderful experience. It's as simple as that. It's just two people.
The cool thing is, like, it will be a unique experience. And it's not unique because it's same sex or same gender. It's unique because it's you plus them, right? That's why it's unique. It might be a unique experience in your life in terms of certain boxes that you're ticking, right? Or experiences that you're having. But if you were to have any relationship with any person, the time that you went to that Chinese restaurant and then with that person versus the next person is a unique experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
And so it's kind of decoupling the idea that it's going to be unique because it's same sex or same gender is kind of the point, right? That's not the reason it's different. It's different because it's two different people. But I mean, like, I see a lot of people talking about like, okay, what do I do? To be more explicit, I guess, like, I have the same genitalia as that person, but I have no idea how to use it on somebody else. I know what it feels good on me, but not on them. Like, it's a puzzle. It's a Rubik's Cube. What the heck do I do? Like, and to that, it's like, that's kind of how it's like for anyone, right? Like, what works on any
discuss your
partner?
desires, consent, discuss what you like.
It's very hard to talk about what you like, what they like, what's your boundaries, and what are your kinks and the things you want to explore together. That will be the same for any partner, no matter their gender, no matter their genitalia, and their experience of their gender and their genitalia, the same as yours as well. And so, like, it is awesome to discuss that with people. People usually aren't turned off by that. Usually they're turned on by that. Oh wow, you want to do what to me? and if they are turned off by open conversations about consent and sexual navigation, then maybe they're not worth the time.
Yeah.
Like,
this is one of the exciting things about being bisexual is that we actually interrogate these things because we span so many worlds. We actually interrogate the meaning of things. You know, the fact that we actually break down attraction into our attraction forms into like attraction, identity, and behavior. People who are gay, people who are straight don't really have to interrogate that sort of stuff because it all lines up. Whereas for bi people, we can be mixed matches. And it's the same thing when it comes to dating, in that if you've dated one gender your entire life and then you're dating a person of a new gender, you know, there's been all these assumed experiences, this assumed knowledge, and you're thinking like, oh, it's going to be different. But if you actually break everything down to the core, which is something that the bi community does so well, you just look at it and go, oh no, it's actually just about communication. It's actually just about forming connection.
I feel like we just need to re-record episode 1 and just say, hey guys, it's about communication, end of podcast.
Totally.
We're done. That's it. That's all we're talking about.
And I'd say here also, if you are new to dating someone of the same gender to you, a lot of fears that bi people will have is potentially facing biphobia or biphobic attitudes when moving into those spaces. And that's the same as anything. You could expect that in any space. And I tell people, never assume that that's definitely going to happen. You can be very pleasantly surprised, and I always have been. And I've been very, very lucky. But also, it's if you very well might be the first bi person if you've shared that part of yourself with that person. You very well may be the first bi person that they have dated, that they've seen, that they've even met, maybe. And so it is. We've talked about it here before. We expect people to give us respect, but we also have to return that respect and understand, oh, they might not know much. They might have outdated terminology. They might have outdated understandings, and to hold space for them and understand if you are forming this connection, there may be clumsiness, but love can overcome everything. Yeah. Education certainly can overcome everything. And just be your genuine true self. And if problematic attitudes do persist, then obviously there's an issue.
And the assumption that there's no clumsiness or hurdles in other relationships or any relationships is a bit of a naive one, right? Like in my relationship that I love and adore, like, we have challenges all the time of like, how do we manage our time and our schedules and work conflicts or being parents and our families. There's lots of hurdles, and you need to be always kind of present and willing to negotiate and hold space for each other and those challenges. And this is just one of them. And so, like, expecting people to get it right straight away, most people won't, I assume, unless perhaps they're by themselves, bisexual themselves. I'm kind of leaning into that for a lot of our future discussions, is reclaiming that as bisexual people in the dating world of, hey, we can educate people, and it's on us to kind of like not expect that of people, but expect that of ourselves, of like how we educate people and the baseline understanding that we want to share with the world, and then the boundaries we then hold after that fact.
And, and a lot of people who have never dated within the queer community or whatever, or not, or whatever, that sounds terrible, or whatever. But, there might be an assumption that, you're going into the LGBTIQ plus community, you're meeting another person who's queer. I'm not going to experience biphobia. And a lot of people might be shocked that exists. And I've certainly experienced it many times. As soon as I've come out to another man, I've been rejected. Those experiences have really informed me that, you might face these things. And just to be aware that this does exist.
And I'd probably jump in and say a particular caution to bi women. I am privy to a lot of conversation in our group and in other groups online, and also just anecdotally with my friends. Dating other women as a bi person is quite a challenge. And there's a really pervasive biphobia narrative in women who love women communities, and it is really unfortunate, and that can lead people to kind of check out of that dating pool, because why would I want to date people who have this opinion of me? But then that becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy of then that will fester, and that pool will just feed itself. And so I would encourage you to be educated and confident in your identity, and maybe have a good little spiel of like, hey, that's not real, that's not true. I actually anecdotally have a friend who, after listening to this podcast, was kind of emboldened to check someone that they were dating on their poor notions of bisexuality, and it went really well. And and they were like, I'm really sorry, actually, that like I am recognizing that I didn't actually think this, or this is where it came from, and so like sometimes people and their attitudes are so shallow, they're just so here, skin deep, that like if you were to just like check someone, clock someone on what they said and why it's not true, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I actually didn't hold on to that tightly.
And also, like, a really interesting topic here, talking about same gender relationships, is with polyamory. And polyamory is more common within the queer community, largely because queer people, by sort of the definition of the word, exist outside of general expectations, general rules, and all of that jazz. All of that jazz. I'm saying whatever, all of that jazz.
That makes sense.
This is my fill in the blank episode, apparently.
That makes sense. We're in the context of the episode. It's
totally,
we all get it. The listeners get it.
Totally. And how to navigate that, like, especially say, in the gay community, open relationships. So open relationships is sort of a form of polyamory, and all of these things are negotiated. And if you were entering into that space for the first time, how you come across that, and the whole thing about polyamory is that it's about communication. It's not a free for all, which is one of those outdated notions of what polyamory means. It's actually just about open communication of your needs, wants, and desires, and consent between all the parties involved, and
boundaries as well.
And effectively prioritizing the happiness of everyone.
As anyone in any relationship would know, it takes a lot of your mental power to be in a single relationship with one person. And so the idea of opening up your relationship or dating multiple people, that's not a flippant thing that a lot of people do. It's not I was going to date 6 people, or I'm going to date 3 people, or whatever it might be. A lot of people kind of have this flippant attitude towards it. Like, I'm not in that situation, that circumstance. I know plenty of people who are, and it is a major part of who they are, because it has to be, because it's such a consideration. And then there are other people who are just like, I'm happy to hook up with people and my partner doesn't care. There's that as well. Like, it's not a relationship necessarily. It's like, it's just quote unquote open, if that makes sense.
And just because it's more common in the queer community doesn't necessarily make it common. And so, also don't hold yourself back assuming, I'm not going to be able to find monogamy in a same-sex relationship, same-gender relationship, because
That's a great point.
Extraordinarily common. Monogamy
That's a great point. Monogamy is still the presumed norm of most relationships across all gender identifications, all sexual orientations, which is interesting because monogamy, I'm not sure, is that a religious hangover? Is that like, I wonder whether, I actually haven't dug into it too much. Maybe we do a monogamy episode in the future, but it is still kind of the presumed norm. And so like being bisexual doesn't mean, hey, let's get it on. It doesn't mean that at all. Which also for like a lot of partners of bisexual people, like that can be reassuring for a particular stage in your life if that is what you want to pursue as well. It's like most bisexual people aren't seeking polyamory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the message for the partners as well. If you're dating someone, and this is in a same gender relationship context, don't assume at all, as we've repeated multiple times on the pod, don't assume that just because you're started dating a bi person, oh, this is my ticket, like my ticket to polyamory, my ticket to an open relationship. And it's like,
oh yeah,
no.
absolutely.
All those assumptions need to go out the door. It's about the connection between two people and what you organize. There are no rules.
Now, I've got an interesting study I want to chat about. So I love studies. We love studies.
We love a good study on this podcast.
And there's quite a few studies going around about the impact on, insert something here based on partner gender. It's an interesting field of research, obviously, as it pertains to bisexual people, because it's pretty unique to us. Now, I've got kind of two favorite researchers. I believe they're both called Brian. You only see their initials on the papers. So Brian Feinstein and Brian Dodge. The study I'm going to reference is called The Role of Partner Gender in Bisexual Men's Stigma-Related Experiences and Mental Health. So this study is on bisexual men, not bisexual women, an insight into how partners' gender can influence stigma or influence their mental health. So what this says is bisexual men in relationships with men are more often out as compared to bi men in relationships with women, or bi men not in relationships. So they're more frequently out than either of those. They also experience more discrimination from and stress from their families compared to those in relationships with women, which that last part we can anecdotally say like that kind of tracks, like
because bi people of course experience homophobia as well as biphobia.
Yeah. So interesting insight that more bisexual men in relationships with same-sex partners are out. It is something that you see. What can you anecdotally say about this study?
Well, like I could see why that is, because sort of being in that queer context gives you maybe more permission to be openly queer and more permission than to be openly bi. And so it would be interesting. Does it say that they are out as bi?
Yes. My understanding is they're out as bi. Yeah.
Cool. Because, I don't know of any bi men in a relationship with another man who claims to be straight. But I do know a lot that will say they're queer or will say that they're gay, but they're actually bisexual.
Well, that's a really good baseline understanding of this. Like, if you're dating someone of the same gender, you're not out of some kind, right? To
sound really offensive, you're not fooling anyone.
Yeah, right. Like, you're going to be saying that you are one or the other, gay or bi or something, right? That is queer encompassing. So that tracks. And so the interesting thing is, anecdotally for me, I know a lot of closeted bisexual people, and especially doing the work that we do, we see it a lot in our community, and people who contact us that they are in straight relationships and bisexual, and they are having challenges perhaps navigating what that looks like. I think that is also because we've done content on that, so they've found us through those means, and so it probably skews the data in my mind, and so I need to be aware of that.
No, it tracks. It tracks. You see it everywhere.
The thing with studies, it's so hard to... It's never accurate because, how do you study someone and their outness if they're not out and they're not participating in these studies, or they're not finding these studies? So interesting and fascinating. And so I'm intrigued by the role of partner gender. There are some more, and perhaps we will discuss them on another episode, about role of partner gender for women. And that I think it actually sometimes has the flip effect. Sometimes they receive more stigma in relationships with women. I'll check myself, and I apologize if I get that wrong, but it's interesting. The effects on bisexual women is really nuanced. And so perhaps we talk about that on another episode.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
We have been wanting to feature someone from the community on our podcast for a long time. And so we've put out a community call out into our Facebook group to say, hey, who wants to come on the podcast to talk about this particular topic? We can talk about an issue or a scenario or a particular thing, but you can write in. That's one great way to do it. Or you can actually send a video or audio submission as well. So we have our first video submission from someone to include on the podcast. We're going to play it now. Fingers crossed it works, because it's all a bit of a test for us, but a little bit of a call to action. If you would like to send a video or audio submission to us to be included in future episodes, come and join the Facebook group. That's where all of that stuff gets filtered through, and we have really great discussions ahead of time on the topics that we talk about on the podcast. But let me see if I can get it to work and play the clip from our dear friend and listener.
Hi everyone, my name's Steve, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm coming to you from Bisexual country in Sydney, Australia. We're talking same-sex relationships for bisexual people today, and I guess when I hear the term like gay passing relationships, you could say that I'm in a gay passing relationship at the moment. I'm a bisexual male and I'm in a relationship with another male. But when I hear the term gay passing, and I'll do the air quotes on that one, I guess the focus for me is thinking about it's other people's perception of my relationship. I mean, just the funny thing with that is when it comes to any other aspect of my sexuality, whether it's my kinks or, the frequency in which I have sex or anything like that, that's kind of nobody else's business from my perspective. So I wonder why my sexuality should be anyone else's business when they're looking at my relationship. So I guess the question I have for you, Chad and Steve, is why do you think it's important for same-sex bisexual relationships to be open about the fact that they're involving bisexual people? Why is it important that gay passing gets clarified and that people are open about it? If in many other ways it would be no one else's business, why does the fact that someone is bisexual suddenly mean that that aspect should be shared with other people? Thanks very much. Love the podcast. Chat to you guys soon. Bye.
Great. Oh my gosh, Steve, we love you.
Oh, what a legend. Love you, Steve.
Honestly, Steve is one of the greats. If you've ever joined the Facebook group, you know Steve. Steve is one of the most wonderful, welcoming, thoughtful, empathetic people who welcomes everyone into the Facebook group and really engages with all the different challenges that people talk about as they kind of find us in the community. So, Steve, thank you for all you do. We love you. And what a great question and kind of context to discuss. I think there's a kind of a few things to break down in that a little bit. You kind of nailed it a little bit. It is other people's perception. But the question is really, why do we think it's important to clarify as a bisexual person? And I guess also the idea that the onus is on us to do that if we deem it to be important. Do you have any thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, it's two-pronged for me. And again, it's an awesome question. And it's an important question because it makes us consider why these things are important, if indeed we decide that they are. And I think when it comes to the individual, you have to decide for yourself. For me personally, it is important. It's really important because of what I've been through with my sexuality, with the discrimination I've faced, and the journey that I've personally gone through to be an open bi man. It's important for that to continue and for the gender of my partner to not define my sexuality or who I am, because my sexuality is important to me. But then also, it's if we become invisible when we are in relationships as bi people and we let the gender of our partner define our sexuality, then we lose such a huge amount of our community. A lot of those hands in the room would go down. And what we're trying to build as a bi plus community is community. is the sense that we are here, because the
Mm.
more we speak up, I go to the kids, and not to sound patronizing, but I want the next generation to have it easier than our generation and the one before us. And that comes through visibility. We know the benefits to health, mental health, to well-being, to everything, the benefits of visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of have a few thoughts as well. So I feel like I love your idea that it's a personal decision. I think it's also a contextual decision. Like, maybe not every context feels appropriate to clarify, or safe to clarify, or maybe it's just like I didn't have the energy to do it. You know what I mean?
I'm
like
hardcore.
so
I would pull someone's dog like over on the street and be like, "No, I'm bi," but that's me, and I'm a different type.
So, sometimes you just kind of want to get on with it, and that's totally fine. I don't think anyone has to do anything. If you would like to, you can. And if it is important to you, you can. And that would change day by day, minute by minute, context by context. I think the reason I do it is because I know that it really has an impact. And it's a bit novel. A lot of people actually don't think about it as much as we think about it, but it can have an impact that outweighs the friction or the moment into the future. And so the ripple effects can be quite large. So if I go, well, by the way, we're actually not a straight couple, we're a different sex or different gender couple because I'm bisexual, it gives someone a language or a framework, or even just 10 more questions that it almost allows them to either go away and maybe ask those questions, or as I'm here being open about talking about these things, maybe they'll give me the questions, and maybe then, okay, cool, maybe I can start to guide the future of that conversation, and that person goes off into other communities that maybe aren't bisexual forward, and they have this informed understanding about what that means. I also feel like another reason I do it, I'm really big into this idea of there's one story that we're a part of. We're a part of the human story. And I have a certain point of view and a certain perspective on what that is because of my lived experience. And Steve has his point of view and perspective, and everyone else will have their own. And we're all kind of looking at, like, how does this make sense? Where do I play a part in this? And as we tell these stories out loud and on the podcast or just to each other, we have an opportunity to connect with people because, the thing you said in your story is similar to my story. And so it's almost like a little bid of like, I see you, do you see me? And I see clarification on some of these things as opportunities to do that. And as Steve was saying before, this connection, this community moment becomes possible because you've decided to put your hand up and bridge this gap and say, I'm willing if you're willing to meet me here. And I see that as a really beautiful opportunity, and the idea that, like, correction isn't and does not have to be combative. Correction can actually be kindness. Correction can be thoughtful. It can be generous. And so kind of leaning into the idea of, like, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm just providing you the opportunity to be correct, or I'm providing you with more information, make of it what you will. I'm not like slam dunking you because you called this a gay relationship or anything. We always come back to this hope kind of messages in all these ideas around information and knowledge and communication and connection, is this hope of, like, we together can do better and we together can ask for more. And that's kind of why I do it, is like, I want you to see me as a full human being. I want to see you as a full human being. Thanks for listening to me. I'll listen to you. Where do we go next?
It's also a really great opportunity to meet other bi people, like in all contexts of visibility, in having any discussion where you talk about your own bisexuality. It's how I've met most other bi people in my life.
Yeah.
That might not mean anything to you, but for me, that's really important. So it's just another opportunity for that.
For sure. One of the things we're seeing, and another study I came across recently, is that we talk a lot about the health rates and health inequities of bisexual people, particularly mental health. And another study I came across was saying that one of the best ways to combat that is connection and community. And interestingly, this study said actually resilience had nothing to do with it. It was actually the acceptance of the bisexual identification that made the difference in helping the mental health rates in this particular study.
Yeah,
which is
we're
so
not making it
fascinating
up.
to me.
It's proven. It's a
It
thing.
is so fascinating
It's
to
a
me because
thing.
we hear a lot that like you just got to toughen up. You know what I mean? Just be more resilient. Just get on with it. And it's
why do you have to make a point of it? And it's like,
oh my gosh,
because we're saving lives by making a point of it.
Absolutely. And like this study, like really kind of, it was a bit of a switch in my head. I kind of it was also maybe the first day I got my ADHD meds, so I was like really on fire. But I was like, oh my fucking God, this study right here points to why it's so important to find community and have that connection and kind of fight for it, because like once you have it, you've given yourself your own ladder by fighting to get it to climb out of whatever funk you may be in, because it can drastically help your mental health outcomes. And so like that is why we talk about it. That is why we discuss it. That is why we don't shut the fuck up about it. Because it really can make all the difference.
Speaking of shutting the fuck up, I need to because no, I have to get back to work in 6 minutes.
Yeah, great. It's the best segue ever.
Sorry, everyone. We can leave that in there.
Yeah, I will. That's great. And I really like when we get into this is how it can really affect people. And so, yeah, I enjoy this. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Oh, I love you, Chad.
Every week.
Oh, here's to 15 more amazing episodes of this season, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. And thank you so much to our community and our listeners for submitting questions. Thank you so much to Steve for submitting the video. We would love to see all of your wonderful faces and voices. Or you can keep yourself anonymous and just and supply us a voice note.
A particularly special thank you to Steve. It takes a lot to say, no one's done it before. I'm going to put my hand up. I'm going to do the uncomfortable thing. So really, really, really thank you. The best way to do it is through the Facebook group and our email, which is all in the show notes. So come and join us in the Facebook group. The best stuff happens in the Facebook group. We love them. They love us. That's great. That's a bit of a love fest. But come and join us.
Thank you, everyone.
Mwah. Mwah. We are holding space for you. Holding space. I love you.